it was not the first time we met. We met, I think it was probably over a year ago. You and I were just discussing how sometimes we don't remember how we meet people, but all we know is like from that initial meeting that there's going to be more conversation and there's more. And you and I were saying that we met for coffee because someone referred you to me. And I think what really struck me at that time when I first met you is that we had a little bit of a similar story where we both did something for a long time, over 2 decades, that traditional path, something we thought we were going to do maybe forever for a long time. And then we decided to make a shift. So, for those that don't know your background, can you just share a little bit more about your background? And then I want to talk all about your entrepreneurial endeavors.
I love that. Well, thanks. So I always start out by saying that right now I'm in my third career wave. So my path was not a straight line. It's very crooked, which I think makes it even more exciting. So my career started out professionally. I was a social worker. I worked for children's services with abused and neglected kids, then a homeless family shelter. Got my master's in public administration and started doing a lot of nonprofit work. Came back to Cleveland and worked for an organization that helped businesses connect with nonprofits to volunteer. So it was an amazing experience, but I got to this point. We can talk a little bit more about, making the leap to make a change and do something different. And that's when I started All Forward. I'm a huge outdoor enthusiast. It's actually something that came about a little bit later in life. So the stories that we'll talk about today with my travels really started to amp up in my 40s. But I'm passionate about long distance cycling, hiking, open water swimming, rowing. And I really believe that these outdoor experiences are like a golden thread that connect people through a shared experience. I've shared with you, I have 4 sons. They're now adults. Our hiking started as a family with the Cleveland Metro Parks, then national parks, and then some international hikes, including the El Camino. I always say that we used to coin early hikes in our family as triple F, forced family fun, because no one ever really wanted to go outside. But once they did, they loved it. So I think it speaks to the fact that many of us, even today as adults, need a little nudge to be able to do something. I'm a huge advocate of community engagement and volunteering. So I served on the Ohio and Erie Canal Coalition Board. That introduced me to cycling on the towpath, which is 101 miles that runs through the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. And that really introduced me to the gems in our backyard. During COVID, spent a lot of time there and started to work on my business, and then did a lot of training with NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School, 31 days in the desert, learning how to backpack, use a compass and a map for navigation, and then rock climbing, and got my certificate in social impact to be able to create All Forward and take these transformative outdoor experiences to the next level here in our own backyard in Northeast Ohio.
It's so interesting that you talk about having like a third career, which I think is becoming more and more common. And maybe it wasn't for our generation. Like I think for me, I always thought I'd work for maybe one organization or two and just do it to retirement and kind of continue to just take the little baby steps. But I'm curious what prompted you each time to make a shift in your different career. So first from the social work and working at the shelter to then working at BVU and then finally to All Forward. Like, was it a knowing, a nudge? Like did you find the courage to make the shift each time?
Yeah, I think that I am my biggest barrier for making change. So a lot of it was me digging deep down inside and saying, it's time for a change. And that's scary because comfort is something that we all gravitate towards. From the direct service social work, that was a tremendous experience of me being able to get a great perspective of our society's issues from homelessness, child abuse and neglect, domestic violence, substance abuse, mental health issues, poverty. So it was a great kind of introduction to the realities of the world through that lens. But then I went back to school and I got my master's in public administration because I wanted to shift gears a bit now that I had had the direct service experience and do some more program planning and policy work. So that was a natural shift for me. But then started to do a lot of work with nonprofits. So as I shared, the nonprofit I was with, the longest stint was almost a decade. And it was a tremendous experience, great culture. It was like my second family. I had a great office. I had a great network, but I knew that I was ready to create something of my own. And that was really scary to one, have that urge, but not know exactly what that next step looked like. The big aha and the decision to make the leave was actually in 2019. I went to Patagonia and I remember hiking, I think it was a 10-day trip, saying that I had never felt so alive with the
Mhm.
wind and the water. It just had this energy that I couldn't quite describe, but I knew I wanted to be a part of in some way. So that kind of planted the seed. It probably took me about a year and a half to leave. It was a planned exit. I take pride in relationships and I'm very loyal. So I had the ability to be able to transition and support my previous employer. And I think it was difficult for me because that organization was almost like my security blanket. And it was comfortable, but I felt like I got to a point where I call it busy bored, where you're busy working, but
Yeah.
you're not, you've kind of hit a plateau of learning and growing. And I just felt like I really owed it to myself to see what else is out there. And I'm a big believer of putting it out to the universe, and God will find a way to connect you to your purpose. There's a couple other things that I did in that transition into the space of creating All Forward. I'm a fan of Tim Ferriss's podcasts, and he had talked about fear setting. I know you also wrote about this in your book. And so I went through those exercises to think like, what am I so afraid of by leaving this position? And how could I, if those fears actually happened, how would I respond? So I went through the exercise, but what really stopped me in my tracks was the concept of the cost of inactivity. So the cost of staying and doing nothing actually was more terrifying than anything, because I felt by staying, time in the world would continue to move forward, but I would be stuck. So that was kind of an aha for me through my journey. I've also went through some exercises of asking myself, what am I good at? What do I love? What are people willing to pay for if it's a business? And then the question of what does the world need? So those were kind of the questions that I grappled with. What does the world need was a tough one because I came from a social work background. So there was a lot of question like, should I be going back to social work? But I came across the quote from Howard Thurman that said, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive.
I
And
love
I
it.
felt like and what I've seen is there's a lot of people that are just hungry for connection. I wanted to help them feel more alive by having outdoor experiences.
Oh God, you said so many good things there. It's like, um, I applaud you for making the shift and making the change. And it sounds like you went through a lot of the same things I did. I did the Tim Ferriss fear setting, which was based on stoicism. I did the ikigai work, which is the questions you ask yourself. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? What does the world need? How can you make money? And really getting to that center. It's doing that exercise for me. And I don't know if you felt the same way. I was reminded that there are a lot of things that we can do. We have a lot of experiences, school, education. We're pretty good at different things, but that doesn't mean that it makes us come alive. It doesn't mean that that's what we would want to do if we could just decide and paint it from the beginning. And that's what I encourage my clients to do. And it sounds like you did the exact same thing, which is like, don't negotiate with yourself before you give yourself an opportunity to dream. Like, really dream so big that you don't know how you're going to do it, but you love it so much that it becomes like this magnet that you get so excited to work towards. And knowing you and your passion for the outdoors and your passion for connection and people and really creating these beautiful experiences, I just love how it all came together with this vision for All Forward and what you're doing. So tell me a little bit about what the big vision was for the organization, and what are some of the things that you've seen now that you've actually put it into action?
Sure. Those are some great questions. And I first want to say that it was not easy
Of course.
going through this process because you think, "Oh, well, there's a lot of things you can do. What do you want to do?" And you would think, oh, well, that's an easy question that I should be able to answer. But it took a lot of intentionality, creating space to say yes to opportunities that presented itself. At that point, I had some really great experiences with travel. I did an Ignatius retreat because I wanted to have some faith-based grounding in my decisions. So it definitely was a process, and I want to share that message with folks, knowing that you got to roll up your sleeves,
Yeah.
and but it's worth it. It's worth it once you go through it, and I'm still going through it.
Hmm.
And it's very satisfying. In terms of All Forward, our tagline is "Find Your Epic." And so
Hmm.
that's kind of what we gravitate towards, is creating outdoor experiences that focus on learning for leadership development, team development, and connections. And so, with a lot of my international travel, the concept is that you can create an epic experience in your own backyard. So that was kind of the underlying inspiration for All Forward, for people to have these transformative experiences with their team and individually, and that they could then come back to the outdoor spaces that All Forward introduced them with family and friends to do this on repeat. And so that was kind of the initial foundation for All Forward. I'm also a big believer in learning by doing. So you can talk to people, you can do business plans, you can journal, you can research, but there comes a point where you just need to start doing it and learning as you go along. That's another scary step, but I'm sure you can relate many moments when you took your first couple of steps.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even, trying to get this podcast going today, there are always things that are like more difficult. And you're like, wait, why is this still a challenge? And I think when we let go of this, the idea that things need to be perfect, or the idea that we're going to start to do something when we feel ready, or when someone somehow gives us permission, none of that's going to happen. Like, I always tell everyone, like, if you're waiting for that, you're going to keep waiting, because nobody's going to give you the permission except for yourself. And we are our worst critic, and we are the person that gets in the way. But I found that the more I practice a lot of grace, a lot of patience with myself, and when I'm able to say, I'm just going to do it a little messy and get started before I get ready, that it just becomes easier. And during the process, there's so much growth, because you can't think your way into any of this.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And I think finding a community of people that are also having this shared experience of starting a business is also really helpful, because being an entrepreneur, as you know, it could be a long, lonely road. I always say it's like I'm riding a horse out west by myself. So I think being intentional about creating communities of people that are going through similar experiences is helpful along the way.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's why I love that you create these beautiful epic experiences for teams with the idea that they can then start to do it outside of the team experience and be able to do it with their families, because we are so lucky in Northeast Ohio, and I'm sure people listening are like, we're lucky where we are. I mean, our metro parks are gorgeous. We've got this lake. We have so many amazing outdoor spaces. Can you just give the audience maybe like a taste of some of the ways or experiences that you've been able to curate for some leadership teams?
Yeah. So, what we've learned is that in designing all forward outdoor experiences, we really need to meet our clients where they're at. We have a mixed bag of physical abilities and people's willingness to stretch and their relationship with the outdoors. So, a lot of our work is very intentional on finding out who's in our target audience and how are we going to design an experience to meet them where they're at and to help them expand their learning zone. So experiences, some of our popular ones are hiking, navigation, and kayaking. We also have partnerships with art academies, the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad, and several of the farmers in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. So just to give you kind of a snapshot, one of our popular experiences is navigation. So they put their phones away and they learn the basics of reading topographical maps using compasses. And then they're in smaller teams and they have to find various points throughout a specific area using a compass, pacing, and their team. It's a great exercise of flexing those muscles of communication, decision making, adaptability, because the points go from easy marks that are just off the trail to more difficult, where you're going to be shooting a bearing, maybe doing some inclines, some declines, some creek walking, or walking through vegetation that's up to your shoulders. So it really allows participants to hone in on physical safety and psychological safety of themselves as well as their teammates. So that one has been transformative to watch people have a lot of fun, but be able to be in an outdoor environment, flexing these leadership and team development skills. Another popular one is hiking, and we even refer to it as walking in many cases, because sometimes even hiking can be an intimidating word for some. I had mentioned we have the towpath. The towpath has a lot of history. It runs parallel through the region between the Cuyahoga River and the remnants of the canal. And so the path used to be where the mules used to pull the canal boats in the early 80s. Now it's used for recreation with cycling and hiking. And all forward will curate these outdoor hikes or walks that integrate the history of the towpath, the Cuyahoga River, and several of the locks into leadership and team development prompts and discussions as we're walking and talking.
So amazing. What have you learned in terms of the ideal client? Like, what is it, a size of company? Is it more of a culture or an attitude that really seem to gravitate towards these experiences?
That's a great question. We typically like to work with small groups. So 6 to 15 is kind of our sweet spot. All forward focuses on connection with self, others, and the community. And we feel that if the group is too large, it becomes a little bit more challenging. We work with leadership teams, young professionals, mentoring groups, high potentials. And in terms of our clients that really value from all forwards experiences are those that either have existing leadership programs and they want to be able to mix it up and have an innovative approach to leadership and learning. It could be a new leader, a new CEO, a new team lead that wants to kick off and establish culture and be able to do it in an outdoor space in an innovative way. So usually my contacts are people that are looking for something different and really have an appreciation for the outdoors. So we're not the Navy SEALs, um, trying to have people on near death experiences. We cater to all ranges of physical abilities and willingness to stretch.
So good. And I love that you are building this around your passion of these types of adventures yourself. And every time I talk to you, you have just come back from something, like sending me photos, texting me pictures from caves. That
Yeah.
actually scares me. And now you're taking another amazing trip. So, first of all, share some of the things you've done, because I know you've done some amazing hikes. You talked about El Camino. I know you've done Mount Kilimanjaro. Like, tell me about some of the things you've done, because it's so inspiring. And the fact that I didn't know this about you, the fact that you said you just started doing some of these things in your 40s is incredible. So what prompted you to like get curious about some of these epic adventures for yourself? And then what have been some of your favorites, and maybe like what are you doing next?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. Yeah. So I love to share that this is like a later in life passion that has really taken off. My mom still looks at me and says, "Where did you come from?" Because our family did not grow up camping or hiking or doing a lot of these outdoor activities. And so I share that because it's never too late to start
Yeah.
anything. Um, and I think the other message is that um, baby steps. Uh, the outdoor experiences that I'm doing now have been built on years of previous experiences. Um, as I said, I have 4 sons, so time was really limited, to be able to do a lot of these adventures, but once they started to get a little bit older, I started doing the long distance cycling. That kinda kicked it off. I shared that I would do these century rides on the towpath. It was a fundraiser for the Ohio and Erie Canal Coalition, and I just was so taken not only by the experience of being able to cycle 101 miles continuously, but the people that I met along the way that I would have never had an opportunity to connect with if it weren't for this shared outdoor experience. So the cycling kind of took off to out of region, cycling across Iowa, cycling around Oregon, and then started to do a lot of the long distance hiking. So that started with Patagonia, which then led to summiting Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, and I didn't even know where that was. It res Typically, when I'm on an outdoor experience, we will, like, dream and kinda think about what do we wanna do next, and before we're even home, we have an idea of what the next adventure will be. And so Kilimanjaro, also Nepal, the 3 passes was an extraordinary experience. And now I think my focus for travel is I really like to focus on local experiences. So if I know someone from the area and I can have a unique experience for someone that can really give me the behind the scenes experience of the culture and the people and the food and the way of life. That's what I gravitate towards. I also think that for me, it's not always where we go or what we're doing. It's how we experience the outdoor spaces and with who. So those are some important elements in terms of my adventures and travels. And I also have learned that the most powerful part of these adventures are the small in between moments. So it may not be getting to the top of a peak. It could be, in Patagonia, my bag never came. So being able to like improvise the first 4 days without anything that you had packed. or just being able to have these really unique experiences with locals. And that's kind of the essence of the travel that if I could use one of your words, that I love to savor.
Yeah. Wow. Do you travel solo, or when you say we, do you have other people you like to go with?
I have traveled solo. As I shared, I've done these courses or experiences with NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School. So I will sign up for those solo. And again, people are like, how can you do that and not know anyone? But I always say, those are my people. Like they
Yeah.
are signing up for something that really sets me on fire. And
Mhm.
so I know that I will find common connections with people that I have just met. um, and then other folks that I travel with, dear friend that I've known for decades. She's my adventure buddy that we do a lot of these experiences with. And then I'm notorious for when I go on experiences, we become friends with the guide, and then we'll continue travels again. So when you travel with me, it's typically not a one and done. You'll see me again.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm sure I'm going to ask you for some adventures we can do because I get so excited. Like I can feel your passion as you're talking about it, and I'm like, I want to do that. We start with
You
these nice
can.
things, and then yeah, and then suddenly I end up somewhere else. What's coming up?
So in February, I'll be going to Kenya. So we will be trekking Mount Kenya, safari, and some cultural immersion experiences. And this trip came about because I'm friends with a, a professional guide that actually guided us on Mount Kilimanjaro. He's from Kenya, and this is his backyard. He's also kind of a guru with NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School, and was part of the first all Black expedition to summit Everest in 2019. I he's a big draw for going to Kenya, and I'm really excited to experience a new place.
Oh, that's amazing. I can't wait to hear about that. That is so cool. And when you go on these trips, do you come back like, does it fuel your desire for all forward? Does it give you new ideas? Like, what are some of the things that happen when you're away?
Yeah, I love that. I like to journal, and I'm always as it's important for me to also be a participant in an outdoor experience, so I can live and breathe and feel what it's like for all forward participants. And so I take a lot of those learnings and bring them back to our all forward team and integrate it into the way we create experiences in Northeast Ohio. And then I think I use a lot of my outdoor travel experiences to think about what I've learned professionally and personally from an outdoor experience, and what are those learning nuggets and how can I apply those to my daily life. And I'm starting to do more writing. I've created a founder's reflection page for All Forward, trying to um, put pen to paper and share some of my experiences and tie them back to All Forward.
I just had this drop in visualizing you creating a journal for these epic adventures and where people can have something that they bring with them, but it helps guide to really pull in the reflections of what they're experiencing. I don't know, it would just be very cool, I think, to be able to create that and provide it. One of the other things that I'm really curious about too is because you are a mom and you do have adult children, I think it's so important for our kids to get to know us as humans, not just as mom, and to see for them to see us having experiences, things that we're passionate about, to see us, outside of just the role of mom. So, what has this done in terms of your relationship with your boys, them seeing you start your business and also to continue to be, independent as you're taking these amazing adventures?
Yeah. I think It's been able to one of the main reasons why I stay active and healthy is to be able to continue to do outdoor experiences with them. So they're an inspiration for me. We do a lot of family travel, and then I also, now that they are older and kind of scattered, I will do some trips with either one or two of them. Um, to be able to share my passion with the outdoors. And they all engage in the outdoors in different ways, but they are passionate about it as well. I think it's important to set some example in terms of how you can creatively integrate a passion with a career. And I love it when they support me and help support All Forward. So they help me with my website design. I think I shared with you, my one son has made whistles. Both him and his college roommate designed and printed whistles on a 3D printer for All Forward. So that just it's special to be able to have family that supports you in those ways, particularly adult sons.
So, so good. Roseanne, I could talk to you for hours, and I do want for you to be able to share. If someone is listening and either for themselves or for their team, or they want to bring this to their company, what is the best way that they can learn more about All Forward and they can get into contact with you directly?
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, I encourage folks to visit our website, which is www.allforward.us. Check out our activities, what we're up to, join our newsletter, follow us on social media. If you have a team and you're looking for an innovative way to kind of hone in on leadership and team development, All Forward would be thrilled to curate an outdoor experience for your team. For individuals who do not have a team, we also have several All Forward connections experiences. So these are, I'm a big believer in shared outdoor experiences that allow connections. So these experiences are unique experiences such as harvesting pussy willows in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, night hikes, kayaking, etc. And we have a unique programming where people connect to expand their personal, social, and civic circles. And then I also always love to shout out advocating for small businesses and nonprofits in your community. That's a cornerstone of All Forward. We work with about 40 organizations, small businesses, and nonprofits. So I would encourage you, wherever you're at, to support those organizations. And then lastly, just to get outside and spread the word, invite a friend outside. As you shared, a walking meeting can be a real energizing experience. And I had recently read in your book that you reported that the average American spends 93% of their time indoors. So the more we can encourage folks to get outside, it really has multiple benefits.
Roseanne, so, so good. I am just so grateful that we connected, and I just look forward to more of our adventures together. We'll include all those details in the show notes. And I ask everyone a final question, which is, what does it mean to you to live the width of your life?
I love this question. So thank you for asking. I was thinking about this before we hopped on. I think there's a couple things. First, intentionality. I love the quote from Mary Oliver that says, "What are you going to do with your one wild, precious life?" So for me, it's realizing that time and health are some of our most important, valuable resources. So how are we going to be intentional about how we use that time? Also, most of us are pretty good at working on our professional resume, but intentionality with our life resume. Like, there's a whole other piece of us outside of the professional. So really being intentional about that as well. Number two, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. I love to share. It's like wearing your shoes on the wrong feet. And so you can stand and you can walk, but it feels a bit uncomfortable. So that's kind of the space that I want to always be in, because that's where growth happens. And you're cut from the same cloth. Number three would be say yes. One of my favorite, I just came across this the other day. It said, make sure your life is full of, can't believe I did that, instead of,
Yeah.
I should have done that. So showing up, saying yes, being curious, and then living life with a sense of urgency. So I shared the story of the sticky note that says, if not now, then.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Oh my
so
God.
that's a that's front and center with the width of my life.
So, so good. I think this should be like a top 5 lessons from Roseanne as we promote this podcast when it comes out. You are just so amazing. I'm so inspired by you. I'm so grateful that you are my friend and that we get to do these amazing things together and share life. I am grateful for you. And I just think that I'm so grateful that you said yes to that hunch, to that nudge that said, let me be uncomfortable and let me ask myself what my passions are and what I really want to bring into this world, because it is just so delightful to watch you do it.
Well, and the feeling is mutual. And I say one of the biggest advantages of starting All Forward is the opportunity to meet amazing human beings like you. So thank you so much for having me on and for hearing my story and for being one of my biggest cheerleaders.
Absolutely. And everyone listening, check out All Forward and all the great, amazing things that Roseanne's doing. Even if you're not in Northeast Ohio, I think you have a lot to be inspired by. Have an amazing day.
Thank you.